The Mindfulness Bible by Patrizia Collard. Chapter 2: The Awakening Mind, the Science of Mindfulness. Second part of reading Chapter 2. How the brain works. Like the rest of the body, the brain consists of billions of cells. Brain cells or neurons are specially designed to transmit information to different regions of the brain as accurately and quickly as possible, covering the distance from one brain center to another within milliseconds. A typical neuron looks a bit like a tree. The information enters the cell via the branches, is passed with the nucleus down the trunk to the roots, where it is transferred to the connecting branches of the next cell. So the brain can be seen as a huge woodland where information is passed between the trees, and as in a wood, the more often you take a particular route, the broader and stronger it becomes. Therefore, the more often we use a particular pathway in our brain, for instance, training a limb to do a certain movement, learning new words, practicing meditation, and so on, the broader and deeper ingrained this particular neural pathway becomes. It is important to note that the brain is organized and structured in a particular way. Different parts of brain are specialized in fulfilling particular tasks and can be seen as being connected to particular experiences. Furthermore, the brain can be seen as consisting of three major areas: the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the frontal brain. The hindbrain or the reptilian brain is the oldest part of the brain. It evolved 500 million years ago and is responsible for automatic reflexes, breathing, heartbeat, coordination of movement, and sense perception. The midbrain, mammalian brain, is important for temperature control and fine tuning movement and plays an important role in the limbic system, which is thought to be vital for perception and expression of emotions. The frontal brain, the youngest part, consists of two hemispheres, which are particularly developed in humans: the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Because there are so many neurons in it, the human brain had to be folded, giving it the shape and appearance we know today. The forebrain or cortex is responsible for controlling cognitive, sensory, and motor functions, as well as regulating eating, sleeping, reproductive functions, and the display of emotions. The cortex can be divided into four lobes: the frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital lobes. Again, each of these has a particular responsibility. Cognitive skills are associated with the frontal lobe. Those skills include reasoning, attention, comprehension of speech, the expression of emotions, empathy, short term memory, and problem solving, among others. In the very front of the brain, the so called prefrontal cortex is vital for complex thoughts and represents our attention association area. It is connected to the visual parts of the brain and is therefore involved in generating images as thoughts and daydreams, which appear spontaneously and randomly in a relaxed mind. In an occupied or focused mind, some images are more important than others and get more attention. So the frontal cortex screens incoming information for relevant thoughts and images, which is particularly important when meditating. The middle part of the prefrontal cortex is said to be particularly important for processes like the balance between the activity and relaxation, inner balance and the regulation of emotions, the flexibility to be able to respond freely to a given situation and not to be forced to react immediately. Empathy due to perception of inner processes. The modulation of anxiety via the inhibition of deeper structures, and so on. Many of those important processes respond to and improve through the practice of mindfulness. The parietal lobe is especially relevant for sensory perception, language, and selective attention. If damaged, patients suffer from distorted perceptual awareness. The visual association area, long term memory, the detection and recognition of sounds and the sensory aspects of speech are associated with the temporal lobe, which also includes two structures belonging to limbic system, the hippocampus and the amygdala. These two areas are of special interest because they are thought to be involved in generating emotional behavior as well as long term memory. Because of the connection between the limbic system and the visual association area, it is possible that emotions can be directed towards certain objects, as well as the objects being able to trigger a specific emotional response. The hippocampus is especially important for the formation of memory. Most of our emotionally charged memories are stored here. Input from our senses is assigned with emotional value in the hippocampus, explaining why remembering an extremely negative or positive experience can still feel fresh and unchanged even after years have passed. The term amygdala comes from the Greek word for almond, referring to the structure's shape. It plays a vital part in the expression of emotions such as fear, rage, and love due to its intense connections with different parts of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. When activated, the amygdala triggers violent, fearful, or aggressive behavior. People who suffer from a dysfunctional amygdala become incapable of any type of emotional expression. Finally, the occipital lobe is responsible for processing visual information, including visual recognition. If it is damaged, we lose the ability to see even though our eyes may work perfectly well. The brain can no longer process the incoming information, a condition that is known as cortical blindness. How physiology affects mood. The all important passing on of information between the neurons in the brain works through impulses within the cells and through chemical neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline acts as messengers, delivering the information from one cell to another. They are stored and released by the cell into the branches of the next cell, where they are picked up by its receptors. There, the message is transformed back into an electric impulse. To deliver a message correctly, this system has to be perfectly balanced. The right neurotransmitters have to be available for the right amount of time in the right combination. If this balance cannot be maintained, it affects a person's mood. There is, for example, a significant correlation between lack of serotonin and depression. And that is why many antidepressants focus on inhibiting serotonin from being used up too quickly. It is not yet known whether the lack of neurotransmitters causes diseases like depression or whether the depression is there first and causes decreasing amounts of certain neurotransmitters. What we do know is that certain activities can trigger the release of neurotransmitters, which can then have an impact on our mood. Oxytocin, the compassion hormone. We not only respond to fear as seen in our flight or fight response mechanism, but also to compassion. Our heart rate goes down and we experience a sense of soothing and calm. The hormone named oxytocin was originally known to stimulate labor and help milk flow in lactating women. It also helps the new mother to bond with her baby, become a better mother, and in general, preserve closer relationships with others. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, it is also released when making love and reaching a climax, and the special feeling and elevated mood can last for minutes or even hours. Our relationship with and love for our partner will deepen the more oxytocin is released. We not only respond to fear but also to compassion. Our heart rate goes down and we experience a sense of soothing and calm. Oxytocin increases when we are moved by compassion, just as it is when we are being touched or when we eat chocolate. It suppresses the activity of amygdala, the gland that processes fear and communicates it to the rest of the brain. Oxytocin also increases the different kinds of human interaction and actions. It stimulates us to lean forward, smile, and use peaceful hand gestures. This chemical reaction increases the more we act upon it. So, more compassion and feeling better triggers us to act even more compassionately, and so on. Oxytocin can also be increased by stimulating our senses, by listening to calming sounds, scenting certain smells, experiencing sunlight, and massage or touch. Dr. R. Sahilian wrote a paper on oxytocin in which he showed that the hormone has even more health benefits than have already been mentioned. It can assist in decreasing blood pressure and cortisol levels. It can make us deal better with pain, stress, and fear, and it can speed up physical healing. The positive social interactions of daily life continuously activate this system. Certain types of psychotherapy and coaching are able to stimulate it too, and MBCT is one form of such support. Oxytocin is found not only in the brain but also in other body parts such as the kidneys, heart, pancreas, uterus, placenta, and testes. Compassion's effect on the amygdala. Mindfulness meditation has a positive impact on well being as well as developing certain structures of the brain. In a recent study at the University of Wisconsin, researchers found that subjects in an fMRI scanner showed different responses in their amygdala, depending on which instruction they received. Two groups were formed, both were shown a picture of someone suffering. The participants of one group were given a compassion instruction. If they saw someone suffering, they should imagine thoughts and phrases such as may you be well, may you be safe, may you be happy and free of suffering. They were instructed to develop and feel compassion for the person they were going to be presented with. Interestingly, these participants showed a significantly weaker response in their amygdala to the disturbing picture than the other group, who had not been given any instructions beforehand. So the amygdala responded less severely if compassion had been introduced into the equation. Stress and relaxation. It is most important for the functioning of the body system that there is a balance between periods of activation and periods of relaxation. Too much of either can lead to ill health as it compromises the immune system. Some pressure can be helpful and motivating. Stress, however, is always destructive. All beings need a certain amount of peace and quiet, and scientifically speaking, relaxation has three major purposes. One, It brings the body system back to square one, into a state from where new arousal and activity are possible for concentration or movement, for example. Two, it provides room for regeneration after phases of prolonged arousal and activity. Three, it reduces hyperactivation of the sympathetic nervous system. Psychologists Robert M. Yerkes and John D. Dodson developed a theory concerning on inverted U-shaped correlation between performance and psychological and or mental activation. This suggested that more activation, pressure, not stress, leads to a better performance, but only up to a certain point. When you enter the stress point and your chosen activities become too much for you to cope with, you end up hyper aroused and your performance decreases. So, putting yourself under pressure to achieve more can only lead to success within well defined boundaries. To remain at the ideal level of arousal, awareness of stress symptoms really is paramount. The more mindful you are, the more you will be able to use meditation or relaxation as a regular means of staying in the zone. Stress is known to be a major risk factor in the origin and duration of disease. Therefore, an effective means of relaxation is essential to maintain physical and psychological well being. This is one of the wonderful side effects that mindfulness can provide. Donald Meichenbaum, a world renowned psychotherapist and stress educator, says relaxation is the aspirin of stress reduction. Chapter 2 to be continued with part 3.